Hi guys, and welcome back to class. Today, I want you to turn to page 119 of Claudette Colvin and read the quote, "More than any other story, to braid it together." And I want you to answer the question, what can you infer about House's purpose in writing this book from his claim about history? Our essential question is, how do people affect social change? And our focusing question, what role did Claudette Colvin and others play in the civil rights movement? Our content framing question in our distill stage says, what is the central idea of Claudette Colvin twice towards justice? In our experiment stage, how does paraphrasing and quoting work? And in our execute stage, how do I find and access sources in a research project? Now I want you guys to record these two definitions. We have legacy and historical importance. A legacy is a gift from the past, something handed down from the past to the future. Historical importance is the significance of a person's actions in the events of the past. What is the relationship between these two words? How do these two terms relate to the ideas of objective facts and or personal truths? Today, the distill question is, what is the central idea of Claudette Colvin twice towards justice? So now looking at chapter 10, how did Judge Johnson's ruling affect the city of Montgomery? What happened to Claudette after Browder versus Gale? What is the significance of Claudette's absence in this photo? How does this relate to her legacy? It can be very difficult to distinguish between facts and interpretation when it comes to historical accounts. One difference between a legacy and the idea of historical importance is that a legacy is the way someone is remembered for what they did, and historical importance has more to do with the facts of what they did. So let's look and make a T-chart labeled Historical Important Facts and Legacy. You're going to reread the epilogue and record the evidence of the facts of Claudette's historical importance, as well as the evidence of Philip House's interpretation of those facts. So when you're reading, if you come across something that shows Claudette's legacy, you'll put it here. If you come across something more geared towards an historical fact, then you'll put it here. Then I want you to consider the following question. How does House's interpretation of Claudette's legacy develop a central idea of Claudette Colvin twice towards justice? Write 3 to 4 sentences explaining how House's interpretation redefines Claudette's historical legacy. As researchers, students will need to make choices about how they prepare their evidence and sources in their writing. As Philip House, who is the author of the book that we're reading, shows, writing an informational text requires a balance of summaries, paraphrases, and quotations. So when you guys start writing your paper, your research paper, you need to have a balance of summaries where you're summarizing information that's taking place, paraphrasing where you're putting things in your own words, and then also using direct quotes from people. So let's look back or look at handout 15A, paraphrase and quotation analysis. In here, you're going to find the first one's going to say quotation, and it's going to give you a quote. The second one's going to say paraphrase, and then it's going to give you something to put in your own words. So here, you're going to put this in your own words, and you're going to write it here. Here, for the quotation, you're going to use the quotation as if you were writing a paper. So, for example, here is the quotation. Jeremiah Reeves's arrest was the turning point of my life. So the person who said this was Claudette Colvin. So if I'm writing a research paper, I might use this quote, but I'm going to write it in like this. Claudette had seen so much social injustice in her life at such a young age. Jeremiah Reeves's arrest was the turning point of my life, Claudette said, and I have it in quotations. This is how you would use a quote. It made her want to stand for something great and gain rights and equality for all Black people. So this would be an example of a few sentences that I would put in my paper where I'm using a quote. But I would make sure that if I take something out of a book, that I put it in quotations, and I also say who said it. Now, here's an example of a paraphrase. So here it says, Jeremiah's plight pulled Claudette's attention away from her personal difficulties to the injustices Blacks faced everywhere. So if I'm going to put this in my own words, I could say, when Jeremiah was killed for a crime he didn't commit simply because of his skin color, Claudette couldn't focus on her own struggles in her personal life. Because Blacks, just like her, were being mistreated. This is an example of a paraphrase. So now I want you to complete the rest of the columns down here on your own. Then ask yourself, what is the purpose of paraphrasing and quotations? Would a paraphrase or a quote be more effective to convey the effect of Reeves's case and how it affected Claudette, and why? When is it useful to paraphrase evidence rather than using a quotation? And what is most important considering when paraphrasing? Now I want you guys to start identifying a source to assess and complete the Find Sources section. That's on 10A. Remember that research is a process. You will record your notes, findings, revisions, and developments in this packet. I want you to read handout 10B and identify the issue that the essay is focused on and underline the sentence that best exemplifies that focus. Then, I want you to complete the accesses section for the example. So you're using this and filling in this for the example essay that's inside of the workbook, and I'll have it posted online for you as well. Then I want you to ask yourself, what do you notice about the sources used in this research project? What research questions do you think the author of this essay asked before starting this project? The content framing question in our distill stage to end this lesson is, what is the central idea of Claudette Colvin Twice Towards Justice? And why did Philip House end his book the way that he did? For tonight, I want you to review your notes and prepare for the focusing question task that we're going to be completing in tomorrow's lesson. Now on to our vocabulary deep dive. Let's look at this sentence. With that, the bus protests ignited by Claudette's arrest 21 months earlier came to an end. House 109. Using context clues, what does the word ignited mean in this sentence? Then record the definition, because ignite means to cause a fire or start burning. But does it necessarily mean that in this sentence? Now I want you to examine the use of the word ignited in the fourth paragraph on page 119 and determine if its definition fits the context. To end this lesson, in our exit ticket, considering that Rosa Parks is often credited with starting the bus protests, as House points out in the epilogue, how does House use of the word ignited on page 109 demonstrate his purpose for writing the book? All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's lesson. Again, if you need any help, please come to office hours Monday through Friday, 11:22 a.m. to 12:06 p.m.